Hey folks, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be going over all the things I did to prepare for the Valkyrie Trial events that are being hosted in Halifax, Nova Scotia at HalCon 2025. The event is taking place on the November 8th weekend, so by the time you're seeing this, it should be game time. I don't want to put this video out too soon to reveal any strategies or anything like that, so if you're watching this around the time it came out, wish me luck. I might be sitting down and playing the games as we speak. But for now, let's go over the format of the event, as well as talk about army compositions that I was considering on bringing, and then we'll kind of wrap up with the army that I did choose to bring, and my hopes and strategies going into the games. I guess for anyone new to the channel, I should probably mention that I'm not your typical competitive Heroscape player. There really isn't much of a scene up here in the Great White North, so yeah, I don't have the reps that other YouTubers, other Heroscape YouTubers might have here. So don't come to the channel looking for that high tier quality competitive commentary. I have been playing the game ever since it first came out, so I do have a pretty solid knowledge base of the figures and the way that the game works and operates, and more like broad strokes, good strategy, good mindset, like using order markers efficiently, army composition, all that sort of stuff. I think I have a pretty good grasp on that. The moment-to-moment stuff I might not know as well, especially when it comes down to weighing out statistics or probability. That's definitely not my forte. I also mention this because I think in my last battle report video I did on the channel, I might have ruffled some feathers in the way that I described some playstyles for the game, and I think I was rightfully corrected on how I should approach commentating that sort of stuff. I think for me, I was largely projecting what I would personally feel playing certain builds in a certain way, and I was projecting that belief onto my opponents, when in a competitive environment, I really shouldn't be doing that. You know, everyone deserves a chance to win, right? And they deserve to play any way that the rules allow to better their odds at winning, right? And it's just different, you know, it's a different mindset that you have to get into, as opposed to just sitting across from your opponent at your kitchen table and, you know, playing a game for fun. So yeah, I think as I go into commentating these games and giving a battle report on how they went for this event, I'm gonna keep that in mind. I'm gonna try not to project my own beliefs on playstyle onto my opponents, because it's a competitive event, and honestly, in terms of Canada, this is probably the most competitive event, or at least the highest prestige Canada or Canadian Heroscape event that, I don't know, maybe we've ever seen. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, it's a totally different you know, player base up here, different worlds. So I think a lot of the players that are fortunate to live in areas that have a more competitive scene, a more active competitive scene, they might end up watching these videos and kind of scoffing at the player skill level, but you know, we're all up here, we're just trying to play the best we can to our abilities, so. Speaking of high-skill Heroscape players, I've been recently inspired by Chris Perkins and the videos he's been making on his YouTube channel as of late. Just fantastic, to-the-point analysis of games, as well as formats, and describing his thought process. So if I come across a little bit different in this video, it might be because of you know, Chris Perkins' influence kind of rubbing off on me, and I think that's a good thing. He's very succinct about the way that he describes things, so I'm gonna endeavor to do so as well, rather than to just blabber on and on and on about the game. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna work on improving that aspect here. So hopefully, when it comes to the battle reports themselves, they'll be much more to the point, and that should improve the quality of the videos, I think. So, shout out to Chris Perkins, of course. This is a name that you should be familiar with if you're interested in the game of Heroscape, I think. Yeah, go check out his channel, watch those videos. I've probably watched his series he did. Sir Heroscape had an online scape tournament, a contemporary tournament. I probably watched every single one of his game videos at least 6 or 7 times, and I feel like every time I watch them, I'm getting better, I'm getting smarter. You know, it's like injecting that talent right into my veins. I love it. So thank you for making those videos, Chris. All right, so let's talk about the format for the Valkyrie Trials at HalCon. So this is going to be a 500 points contemporary event with a 20-figure limit. That's basically cheese, you know, cheese with 20 figures. Now there is a catch here. Each player will be provided with a Gullix Wing Render treasure glyph at the start of the event. You may begin each game with a Gullix Wing Render treasure glyph on the army card of one of your unique heroes. So basically you can give one of the heroes in your army this treasure glyph, and they have that at the start of the game. Your opponent has that as well too. Now what this treasure glyph does is it allows you to re-roll 1 die that did not show a skull every time you make a normal attack. Attack against an adjacent enemy is the stipulation there. So automatically this kind of skews some things in the meta. It means that unique heroes inherently are better melee in attacking unique heroes. Specifically, if you can put this treasure glyph on a unique hero that can make multiple attacks in their turn. So obviously the big one that comes up immediately is Maledrix, the Conqueror. She has a double attack, which means that she gets to reroll one of those dies on each of those attacks. Other names that, you know, are worth considering, I think, are figures like Mielke, who also has a double attack. The new Raylan as well too. She's got a Whirlwind Assault, and this glyph would allow you to re-roll any of those die rolls, or all of them, right, as you're making your Whirlwind attacks. So I think those are both pretty good. Sonlin, Age of Annihilation Sonlin wouldn't be a bad pick either because of the Dragon Assault. So those are some heroes that I think lend themselves well to this glyph being present in the game. It basically guarantees, though, that you really should include a unique hero somewhere in your army to make use of this glyph. Now, it doesn't help your special attacks, it doesn't help your ranged attacks, only your melee normal attacks. So you gotta kind of pick and choose, gotta be picky about who you're gonna bring. A figure limit of 20 is also pretty big. That allows for a fairly large army size, and that could mean multiple common squads. And in this case, Gallery, right? Gallery Vanguards. That's kind of the automatic go-to. If I want to put a lot of contemporary figures on the board, I should be bringing the Gallery Vanguard. And we'll look at an army build or 2, or maybe 4, that utilize the Gallery. And we'll dive into that when we get there. So Embers of War is the current meta, I suppose, if you want to say that that's where it cuts off. So any of the releases up to and including Embers of War are on the table, which gives us a lot of options. So let's start plugging them in and seeing what fits. So here's the first build that I looked at, and I think it's probably the best one, to be honest. Bugs and bears. Here, peanut butter and chocolate. Just stick them together. It's amazing, right? So, Frostclaw Paladins, Knight Primus Adelburn, paired with Queen Maledrix the Conqueror and the Festering Honor Guard. Boom, bada bing, bada bang. You put them together, and you have a 1-2 punch of effectiveness. You can choose which element of that army you want to lead, and then follow it up with the other one. I think this build is great because it just includes really great army cards. There isn't a miss anywhere in here. These are all winners, and it allows you to kind of react to what you're going up against, I think, pretty well. Both of these cores, I suppose, it's kind of like a dual core army. Both of them are really great into Gallery. And if you have both of them, I think you just roll over any Gallery army that comes your way. So, yeah, this is, I think, a really strong favored build in the tournament setting here. I know it doesn't have any commons, but yeah, I think it I think it's good regardless. I've played a lot of games of Soloscape versus this army or with this army, and its win rate is considerable. So yeah, I think this is the one to beat. You put the treasure glyph on Maledrix, and then you just decide if you want to control the board, control the glyphs, then you lead with Maledrix. And if you don't, then you lead with the Frost Claws and Knight Primus. You might even do Frost Claws and Knight Primus versus Gallery specifically to get them up there and smashing and doing all that fun stuff early on. But yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot of thinking involved. It's kind of an army that plays itself here, right? Now you still need to make small scale tactical decisions, right? Where you place the Festering Honor Guard, where you place Queen Maledrix, like those are all important decisions to be made. So I'm not trying to say that this is, like something on training wheels, but I think it's also kind of hard to mess it up. Like you just have good stuff in this army, and sometimes good stuff, like good stats, are good, it turns out. So if I had to pick a build that I think will win the event, I think this is the one that I would pick. It, however, is not the build I'm gonna bring, and we'll get to the one I'm gonna bring, but I don't know, man. I'm so sick of Queen Maledrix. I think she's just like too good. There's just no inherent weaknesses built into the card, either her or on her card or the Festering Honor Guard. I kind of have this, I guess, irrational dislike of Queen Maledrix, almost like Dog and Days in the way that he describes how he just won't play bears. I'm kind of the same way with Maledrix. I just don't want to play Maledrix. Yeah, 6 life, 5 defense, double attack, and then a 5-figure bonding squad. It's crazy the amount of output, and there's so many upsides to this army card pairing, because you get a huge amount of map control for free, a very threatening hero, and then for your opponent, there isn't really a good way to fight against this, because either you start taking out the Honor Guard early and Queen Maledrix starts infesting your heroes, or you focus fire on Maledrix and you get a very angry Festering Honor Guard all of a sudden. It can be really, really difficult to deal with, especially when your army doesn't contain high numbers of figures, because then you can't wall off and shield or protect your heroes from getting infested. It's brutal. I think the fact that she doesn't even need to attack the heroes to infest them. It's just like a touch tag sort of thing, 9 or higher. It's just wild. What's the defense against that? There really isn't. She's really fast. 6 move is crazy. And every time I play her in these solo games, I'm always happy to take a leaving engagement attack or two to get her in a better spot where she can infest some heroes. Because you're just going to earn that value back instantly if you can do that. If Queen Maledrix infests Adelburn, she's basically already earned her point cost right there. Because even if that doesn't proc immediately, it sets that ticking time bomb in Adelburn, and now you don't even have to worry about Adelburn. You can just go about your business, take out all the Frost Claws or whatever, and Adelburn will eventually explode. So yeah, it's also crazy too, is that even if your opponent focuses down Maledrix and kills her off, they don't even get the upside of killing off order markers, because all the order markers move to the Festering Honor Guard immediately. It's like they prepared for everything. So I'm just not a huge fan of card designs that just don't have a weakness to them. I like card designs that have something that you need to play around to help protect the weakness, and your opponent is trying to exploit that weakness. Like even a figure like Knight Primus Adelburn, who is a very good figure with crazy good upsides, at least they only have 3 defense, right? So if they start whacking away or get surrounded by Gallery or something like that, they can go down pretty quick. So at least there's a flaw there. I just don't think there is one in Maledrix. I think it's all upsides. It turns out Maledrix is pretty good. Maledrix is really good. So, but not for me. I was kind of the, like, to pivot, talk about Call of Duty for a second, because I played a lot of Call of Duty growing up. I could understand and recognize that, like, the MP40 was the obvious meta choice, but I still wanted to use the trench gun, mess around with that, or Car 98 or something like that, It's just the kind of player I am, I suppose. So I recognize that Queen Maledrix is the meta choice. Like, she's top of the meta. I recognize that. I just don't want to play her. So that kind of crosses that right off the list there. Another army that I think is disqualified for me is the Queen Maledrix plus Festering Honor Guard plus 3 squads of Great Bow Archers and the Revenant Acolytes. I think this build has certain upsides that are maybe greater than the previous army I talked about, but I don't think it does as well into Gallery specifically. And I'm not entirely sure if it will honestly do as well into that previous build that I talked about. Maybe. You got to get some pretty good great bow shots in there. But the thing about just running bugs and bears is that they all have 6 move. So it's just a really fast army. It's tough to run away from that. They're going to catch you eventually. So you gotta pray that you can get some good pings in before they're on top of you, because once the bears are on top of you, the archers are toast. They can't really do much against bears at that point. So yeah, it's good. I think it's solid. I just don't know if it fares as well consistently throughout, but it's also a really solid pick. But because it has Queen Maledrix, I can't use this one either, so we're gonna keep on looking. I guess I should also mention what I think is probably the strongest Isonek build in this meta, or this format, I should say, and that would be the Iron Lich Viscerot plus the Necrotech Wraith Riders plus Scavarith plus the Exiles of the Sundered Sea, and yeah, just kind of a 4 army card, 500 point army. It's probably the strongest one that exists in this format. But at the same time, I think the threat of the Gallery being present and the 20 hex or 20 figure limit is too much of a threat for the Isonek to deal with. I think they do better in lower figure limits than that, with less potential for common spam, or common army card spam, I should say. That being said, Scavarith could be a pretty big menace to give the treasure glyph to, because they have that potential of the extra double inject turn, and being able to reroll one of those die each time you make those melee attacks could be pretty big. Like, it's nothing to sneeze at. And Exiles are great. Iron Lich plus Necrotech and Scavarith is also really great. So there's a lot of good things there. I think there's a likelihood of this army showing up. However, I don't think it'll perform well against the majority of builds that we'll see. But that's just my guess, I suppose. Here's what the full Great Bow Archer build would look like. 6 copies of the Great Bow Archers, that's 12 figures there. I don't know, there's a medium likelihood this army gets ran. I hope it does, because I think that's an easy win for anyone who goes up against it. Yeah, I just don't think I don't think this build has what it takes. It's one of those really interesting qualities about the Great Bow Archers that I really enjoy, is that they're a common squad that seems to be designed in a way where having more of them doesn't equal better, but like, it's really interesting. I find them very fascinating, and I love playing with them. I love like theory crafting with them as well too. Seems like 2 or 3 copies is really the most you want in your army. Otherwise, you just don't have enough activations per order marker to do what you need to do to win a game of Heroscape. So yeah, I find it very, very peculiar how their stats are so good on the card, and yet just because they're a 2-figure squad, it keeps them in check. I love it. I'd be happy to run Great Bow Archers in my army. In fact, I think that would be a really smart idea in this format. However, this is not the build. I don't think this is the one. So one army I did experiment with was 2 copies of the Great Bow Archers, plus Knight Primus Adelburn and the Frost Claws, and Tuck Harrigan. Unfortunately, because of the way that the points line up, You can't get a third squad of great bow archers in there. So Tuck is there to be the kind of the filler, not filler, late game cleanup, I think is maybe a better term, and also the Wannock soak, because this army really suffers if your opponent has the Wannock glyph. The wound glyph is just gonna run you dead, run you dry throughout this army. So if the Wannock glyph is on the board, the idea is to land Tuck as quickly as possible. Just put him in the back of the start zone, whatever, leave him there, and then you can afford to put wounds on him, because you really don't want to put wounds on any other figure in this army. Like, they want to stay healthy. They want to get as much value out of them as possible. And if the Wannock glyph isn't present, then you leave Tuck off the board until it's getting close to the end game, and then you can start making those rolls to land and move your order markers over and start flying around and doing shenanigans. So yeah, it's not the worst build. I played quite a few games with this and got some wins, got some losses. I could win games with it, which was good. That's good to see. The problem I ran into, though, is that 2 copies of the Great Bow Archers, I think 3. I think 3 is just, there's something about the safety of 3 that you don't get from 2. With 2, if one of your archers gets tied up, or if 2 of them go down early, you really run the risk of losing order marker activations with that army card, and that's a really bad thing. You don't want to lose activations every time you reveal an order marker. And ideally, you want to have some great bows left over for the end game, where they can start running around and poking away and trying to get those beautiful turn 3 initiative flips, where you run them 7 spaces away from your opponent, take the shot, and then win initiative the next round and take the boosted shot from 7 range. Like, those are beautiful. I love pulling those off, but this one just doesn't have the numbers to guarantee that you're going to get that later on. So I ended up passing on this build and went with a different one, something similar. But we'll get to that in a second here. We got to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's the gallery. Let's see what the gallery have in store. So the biggest thing holding the gallery back in this format is the 20 figure limit. That was done intentionally, at least I believe so, to help keep the gallery in check. Because at 24, I think the gallery just become automatically the best army out there because of the amount of figures they can field, unmatched, essentially. But at 20, it's a little bit tougher. And also 500 points isn't really that good for a gallery army. There's, I don't know, I'll show you what I came up with here. Lots of different builds. First one here is Gallery ×5, Glenerva, and the Krakenling. I thought, maybe Glenerva could help protect them from ranged attacks, but honestly, as I thought about it more, I don't think they really need Glenerva. The Gallery are already pretty strong against range. It's actually their melee matchups that they're not so hot against, right? So, yeah, I don't think this one's a likely pick. This one was pretty good, though. Channa the Zenith Wing, Iwashia, Gallery ×4, and a Krakenling. That one's not bad. I think you could do something with that. I think Iwashia and Channa is a really powerful combo. Channa is definitely, or Iwashia is the best wizard for Channa. Channa wants to heal figures that have high defense and low life, and Iwashia fits that bill really well. The reason why is because those wounds are more valuable than other wounds. Like HalCon only has 3 defense, so HalCon's going to be getting wounds all the time, whereas Iwashia on height with water, I think that boosts it up to 6 defense, 4 life. Yeah, that's going to be a lot tougher to receive wounds, and Channa has an equal chance of removing those wounds, so you want figures with higher defense. Does this mean that Channa's a better pick than Onshu? I don't know, maybe, probably not, but at the same time, you don't really have room in this army to take Onshu. So, yeah, there is the problem of point cost there. Gallery ×4 and Krakenling ×1 probably isn't enough. I don't know. You can't go less than ×4 for the Gallery. But this is also butting up against the figure limit. Because 19 figures, that's all you get on the board here. So not really any space to take on more weight. A couple other armies. I thought Gallery ×4, Krakenling ×1 with Sergeant Drake could be interesting. I don't think it's that strong. I don't think this is the one either. But Sergeant Drake is such an amazing counter pick for the Great Bow Archers that, it's just got to be a way to fit that hero into the build somewhere. And then the last army here is the Gallery Vanguards ×5, Krakenling ×2, and then you have to drop 2 figures. Just kind of painful to drop 2 from an army, but this would be the pure Gallery build. The problem with this one, though, is that you don't have a unique hero in the army to put the treasure glyph on, so you just don't get to play with the treasure glyph. So you have to play from behind, essentially. Your opponent gets a boost and you don't. So that's kind of what I mean when I say that I'm not sure what the best Gallery build even looks like here. In my opinion, it's the Channa, Awashia, Gallery, and Krakenling build. I think that's the strongest one. But even then, what are you putting the treasure glyph on? Like, are you putting it on Awashia? Like, Awashia is going to be attacking with her special attack most of the time, so you're not going to get any value out of the treasure glyph. And then Channa isn't going to be attacking, right? Like, except in dangerous, dire situations. Channa's just there to keep Awashia alive and let Awashia do all the blasting. So, yeah, again, it feels like you're playing with, one arm tied behind your back when you really shouldn't have to. So, yeah, I've got to say that after my Soloscape games, after playtesting against Gallery builds, I'm really not that scared of them. Maybe that's going to come back and bite me in the butt when it comes to actually playing these games. But pretty much all the builds I was running could deal with the Gallery, and they could clean them up. Maybe that's just because I'm not playing the Gallery right. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. I'm trying to make use of Tidal Advance and get 4 activations every turn, 4 attacks in every turn when I can manage to do that. But at the same time, they just they're really weak defensively, and they go down quick. Like Maladrix and the Festering Honor Guard, they love munching into Gallery. They can take down dozens of Gallery. It's just a slaughter. So, 2 defense is not going to save you from the little nips from the Festering Honor Guard. They can do work. So yeah, I think a Gallery army is likely to appear. I don't know which one of these builds it's going to be, but at the same time, I'm not that worried about it. I don't think the Gallery are going to be it. I think it's Bears and Bugs. I think that's their army to beat. So can I beat that army? Well, here's what I chose to bring. Knight Primus Adelburn, the Frostclaw Paladins, Crimson Widow, and the Exiles of the Sundred Sea. Now, the pirates, adding the pirates into this, allows me to make the Frostclaw Paladins into a pirate squad. And Crimson Widow can then boost the attack of all of your pirate squads by 1, as long as she has an order marker on her card. And this is always going to be the X order marker, because you really don't want to use Crimson Widow. If the game state has gotten to the point where you have to put real order markers on Crimson Widow, you're in a really sorry state, because she is honestly a really horrible end game piece. Kind of down there with the... Like if you could imagine the Venok Warlord with less life and less move, it's rough if you have to start running her around the map. So I did try this army with the Dreadnoughts instead of the Exiles, but all that really did is it turned the army into a 2-wave army that was just inherently worse than the Maladrix and Frostclaw's 2-wave army. So I got rid of the Dreadnoughts. I'm not seeing the dream with them quite yet. So the Exiles, however, are a pretty good piece against the Great Bow Archers. So using them and relying on their stealthy rolls can be good. But they also get that added attack in melee engagements. So they can be quite the powerhouse in the end game as well, if it's just down to them and the Crimson Widow. You can still just put the X on the Crimson Widow and just, leave her in the back, leave her in the start zone as far back as she can go, because you don't want to use her. But the Exiles, they can put in work towards the end of the game. And Pirate Bears are really good. The Frost Claws are probably one of the best squads in the game to be turned into pirates, because when they have that +1 attack, it also influences their run turns, like the turns when they run, because normally Frost Claws run and then they get reduced to 1 attack. Being bumped up to 2 is huge. The difference between 1 attack die and 2 is probably one of the biggest in the game. You want that difference there. And if they stay still, or they stay within only 3 movement, they're getting 4 attack from the bonus, which is also pretty good. Now, I playtested this army quite a bit. I played a lot of games with it, and I can beat the Bears and Bugs. It can win. However, you have to make sure that Adelburn doesn't get killed by the infestation. And you have to get some pretty good defensive rolls in early on, because I think the way that Maladrix fights this is she tries to kill the Frost Claws and infest Adelburn. Because if you can kill off the Frost Claws, or enough of them, and you can infest Adelburn, then it's Bears versus Exiles, and that's really horrible for the Exiles. They don't want to be going up against Crushing Blow. That's really bad for them. So, The Maladrix and Bears player is probably favored in that matchup anyways, but hey, I don't want to take Maladrix. I don't want to bring her to this event, so this is the next best thing, I think, and it has a couple of upsides to it as well. I like that the Crimson Widow allows me to just dump the X order marker, and I don't really have to think about it. There is kind of an advantage to doing that. Obviously, I'm giving up the ability to bluff my opponent. Basically, they're always guaranteed to see where my order markers are, which is a bad thing. I recognize that. That's not good. But from a player perspective, I can just sit down at the table and go boom. All right, 3 order markers on the Frost Claws, and I got my X over there on Crimson Widow. And as the game changes, I might have to move order markers off of the Frost Claws onto Adelburn, and then later from Adelburn onto the Exiles. That's kind of what it looks like. Depending on what I go up against, there might be some matchups where I want to lead with the Exiles. Not many, though. Not many. I think if it looks like my opponent's going to start with Great Bows, there's definitely an inkling to lead with Exiles, but I think it's the wrong move. I think you just gotta move the Frost Claws and Adelburn and get them across the map. You can't let them sleep in the start zone, because that allows your opponent to set up those 7 range shots and potentially get the initiative switch. So yeah, you got to think ahead there. You got to avoid those worst case scenario sort of situations. So yeah, I think it really is, you just lead Frost Claws and Adelburn and then just hope for the best. Hope you can do enough damage there that it makes the whole thing worthwhile. So yeah, that's my army. This is what I'm bringing. Wish me luck, because I think I'm going to need it in some of these matchups. I know I'm not bringing the top of the meta here. In fact, I'm avoiding some of the big players. I'm avoiding bringing something with Gallery. I'm avoiding the Great Bow Archers because I think they have a claim to fame here, and I'm avoiding Maladrix, obviously. Now, Adelburn, yeah, maybe just off the podium, but still a really powerful piece. And the Frost Claws are no slouches. Obviously, the Exiles are amazing. They can just put in work. You can get a lot of value if you play them right. So it's going to come down to making some good plays with the pieces that I have. I like the idea also of Crimson Widow adding a lot of value to the army without risking her own self, I suppose, without risking her points. Because this is a tournament format, there's the chance that some of these games might go to time. And I think, while you shouldn't be playing like that, and obviously I don't, I'm a really fast player. I try to, boom, 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 get the moves out. If one of my games ends up going to time, having 150 points sitting back in the start zone that was generating value this whole time by boosting the rest of my army is good. Like, that's a good thing to have sitting back there unwounded, just hanging out in the back of the start zone, because it might make the difference if a game goes to time. Obviously, I don't want games to go to time. I want to play them through, because I think that's the best way to play a game of Heroscape. But the realities of running a tournament is that, you need games to start and end on time. So we'll see what happens. Maybe that'll be a significant factor. Maybe it won't. I don't know yet. So maybe I did this in reverse order, but I need to talk about the glyphs now. Because maybe I should have talked about the glyphs before I talked about army compositions, but here's what we're working with. The glyphs are going to be assigned from a pool, and they're going to be randomly drawn from the following options. So there's going to be 3 copies of the glyph of Wanok, 3 copies of the glyph of Dagmar, 2 copies of Valda, 2 copies of Ulaniva, 1 copy of Loden, and 1 copy of Yadulkia. I haven't said that one before, I think. Yadulkia. Anyways, Wanok is the wound glyph, Dagmar is the initiative glyph. Those ones are going to be very common on the maps. Valda is the movement glyph, +2 move. Ulaniva is the +1 unique attack. That's a pretty powerful one. Loden is +1 to your d20 rolls, and Yadulkia is disengage for your whole army. So a couple of things. Wanok being present and being very probable, I suppose, highly weighted in the glyph pool, means that whatever you build needs to have something to soak Wanok, or some counter to that, or some way to claim Wanok. There's got to be something in it. For me, I don't really have a good way to claim Wanok unless I leave a bear behind. So the Crimson Widow becomes the Wanok soak, which isn't ideal if it goes to time, but she's got 5 life, and it buys me some time. She doesn't need to be full health for me to win the game. Let's just put it that way. Dagmar is a really impactful glyph. It's really good for Maledrix, because she can leave a Festering Honor Guard behind on it to get the initiative switch in your opponent's start zone. And it's also really good for the Gallery Vanguards, because they can move onto it during their title movement before initiative is rolled, which is really powerful, because then they can basically guarantee you an initiative switch in key moments. So yeah, that's a good glyph for those armies. I need to be aware of that. Valda is really good for Maledrix armies, of course it is, and it's also really good for Frost Claws as well too, because then they don't have to expend their run skill as frequently. They can move 5 spaces without having to run, and that's pretty awesome to be able to get full attack power out of them. So yeah, I do want to see Valda on the map if I'm not up against Maledrix. If I am, then it's kind of bad news. But if it's just me against something else, I don't mind seeing Valda there. I think my army's pretty good for that one. Ulaniva is a pretty scary glyph. Now, my army is all uniques, so it loves Ulaniva, but so does Maledrix. And Maledrix, honestly, is really strong with Ulaniva because of the bonding potential there, because of the ability to get 7 attacks in per order marker. All of them get a +1. That's 7 extra dice that your opponent's throwing at you. And then in the context of this event, your opponent has their glyph, their treasure glyph, on Maledrix herself, so she's re-rolling one of those attacks on each of her double attacks. Like, re-rolling one of the dies, I should say, on one of those, on each of those attacks. It's crazy. So this glyph is pretty much the one I have to contest. If it's on the board, I have to go and fight for it, because winning or losing depends on controlling that glyph for me. If I can get it, it's huge for the Frost Claws, because then even when they run, because they're pirates, they're getting 3 dice when they run, 5 dice if they don't. that's fantastic. It's so strong. So yeah, Ulaniva does a ton for my army, as well as my opponent if they're running Maledrix, so it becomes very relevant very quickly. The last two here are fairly weak glyphs compared to the rest, Lodin and Yodolkia. They don't do that much. Like, obviously, the disengage is pretty good, and it can be really great for Maledrix armies. Of course. All these glyphs are good for Maledrix. The format is so good for Maledrix. Anyways, so yeah, I don't think it really matters too much for me to think about them because they're very unlikely to show up, only being 1x of each. Yeah, so maybe I'll come across Lodin. Lodin doesn't really help me, helps my stealthy rolls, and that's about it. And I don't think disengage will do much for me either. Adalburn loves disengaging anyways. I just run him around like I play Valgard. It's pretty much the same deal here. He's got 8 life, so what's a wound or 2 from a leaving engagement attack if it means I can get in a better position and crushing blow a figure and take something else out with a solid attack. I will happily trade the leaving engagements for that. So yeah, I don't really need the disengage glyph either. So yeah. Lastly, I'll mention the maps here. Now this is just the preliminary map pool. There might be others added to it if the event gets big enough or there's more people attending. But yeah, we have Talus, Oried, Terrapin, and Kismet, all by Shurig. Those are the tournament organizer maps that Shurig designed, and I've played on these before, actually. We did our in-store championship games on those maps, and then I rebuilt them, and I've been playing on them as well. So yeah, some interesting start zones on a couple of them. I don't know which one is which. I don't know which one is called what, so I'll just talk about them collectively, I suppose, as they show up in the battle reports. Some of them have start zones where you have to caution against great bow archers, because great bow archers can move and then get attacks into your start zone with 1 order marker on them. So you gotta count it out and be cautious of that. I've played Spring Fling before by Rainy Days. That's another one that's in the pool here. Spring Fling is short enough of a map that the great bows can hit the start zone on order marker 1, so you got to be aware of that as well too. I kind of wish I was running great bows. Like I don't know, if I could do Frost Claws, Adalburn, and great bows times 3, I would love that army. I think I'd get a lot of success out of that, but alas. And then Iced Cider, that's the one I was the least familiar with, so I built that one and played it a little bit. Nothing too crazy going on with it there, so I don't know. There's a ton of lava on that map, so I think that's going to be tough for a gallery player to play around, although they can title advance off of the lava. I can't remember what the order is there, if title advance happens at the start. Oh, it does, doesn't it? Because it's the order markers. So, yeah. Anywho, I don't know if these maps favor any one build more than others. They're pretty open, so I think range has a pretty good time with this. So the great bows will, I think, overperform, perhaps. Some of the maps, especially the tournament organizer ones, are fairly large, too, so they have places where the great bows can run away to. So, yeah, maybe that Maledrix Great Bows times 3 build is going to be the one that takes it in the end. I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up there. But yeah, those are the maps, and I've played on all of them. I feel pretty confident about all of them. And yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. I'm traveling to this event with a friend of mine who is also really, really great Heroscape player. His name's Chris, and he was, if I'm not mistaken, the first Canadian player to participate in ScapeCon down in the States. So that's awesome. He was representing Canada on the world stage. Anyways, yeah, he's going to be one of the guys to beat for sure. I mean, if one of us wins, then that's amazing. But I think in preparing my army here, I have to be prepared to lose to Chris, I think. Because Chris doesn't have the same hang-ups I do when it comes to not playing Maledrix. So I foresee running into him at the event and running into his Maledrix, and yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to walk away from that one or not as the victor, but we'll see what happens there. So anyways, that's the preamble, that's the early analysis of what I expect to run into. Let's see what actually happened. So like I mentioned at the start here, if you're listening to this right as it went live, I'm currently playing the games, so wish me luck. If you're coming back to this video, a little while later, then you can expect the follow-up videos to come out in the next little while. I'll probably do a separate video for each game and talk about them in isolation like that. But yeah, I'll probably have some more stuff to mention. I feel like I'm missing a bunch here, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But thanks very much for listening along, and I will see you next time for another video. Until then, happy scaping.